sacred. And you just Dr. Greg Kokel. Actually, I don't know if he's a doctor or not. Is he? Greg Kokel, who is an apologist, says that this is the Columbo method. You ask good questions. So think of some good questions to ask him, like, well, what do you mean by sacred? Why is that negative? Um, don't you think the universe would be sacred? Isn't sacred a good thing? So again, make him tell you exactly what he's meaning. That way you're not creating straw men and then destroying these straw men arguments, and you actually haven't accomplished anything. So you don't want to do more work than possible. You don't want to do more work than you have to do. So ask right questions and get to the root of the issue. All right, let's listen to another clip. Now, I sincerely agree with this last point. We do not need to shy away from these things. Though one of the reasons that we are, as Christians, we are in this dilemma and quandary that we're in is because we did shy away from these things. We stayed away from the sciences. We stayed away from philosophy. We stayed away from intellect because it was going to corrupt us. Intellect and these things are not corrupt in themselves. It is the vessel that is corrupt, that uses those tools and propagates corruption. It's not the things themselves. So I do agree that we need to not shy away so we can bust through these misconceptions. Now he says that we need to point out that this is what happened in the history of religion. And I look how silly they are. Oh, look at these silly little simple-minded people that they had no clue. You know, we're so much smarter than they are. We're so much more evolved than they are, and it's just silly. It's oh, you think the Earth is flat? Oh, you know, it just bless your little old heart. That's what I think of when I hear this. I hear the condescension. Now, this is my opinion. I am positing this onto Dr. Krauss just by the verbiage he uses, by the mannerisms in which he uses these, and you can watch him in the video. When I see someone act like that, the first thing I think of is condescending. And I mean, Sam Harris and other people have made comments like that about people 2,000 years ago, how simple minded they were. And I think I've already said this in the podcast, but Dallas Willard would say Jesus Christ was the smartest man that ever lived. So, having said that, I agree with the point. We don't need to shy away. But if you go through the history of religion, you will find out that Jesus Christ is not an historical anecdote or an asterisk. Jesus Christ was a real man. And as C.S. Lewis put it, he is either liar, he is either lunatic, or he is Lord. But you have to wrestle that out. Let's listen to another clip.
I think that might be a century away. I think in the interim, at least if we learned about each other, we would be less likely to want to kill each other.
Well, you know, when you say it's a century away, when I talk about this, and it was again something I cut out from my remarks because I was going late, people say, well, you know, religion's been around since the dawning of man, you'll never change that. But I point out, and Nancy and I were just talking, we talked about this a lot, this issue of gay marriage, it's going to go away. Because if you have a child, we have a 13-year-old, they can't understand what the issue is. It's a generation, it's gone. One generation is all it takes.
All right, this one's a little more straightforward in how you would go about responding to this. First of all, he said that the issue of homosexual marriage to 13-year-olds is no big deal. They don't understand what the question is. They don't understand what the dilemma actually is. That is a broad generalization, and there is no possible way he could actually know that. Now, he may be conducting information from a survey, but we need not speculate on where he's getting his data from. He hasn't told us he's given his data. He is speaking as an authority figure, and he is saying 13-year-olds don't understand the dilemma of homosexual marriage. They think it's absolutely fine. Their morals say that it's fine. It's only the silly religious that have the issue with it. And once they die, the issue's over. So his whole contention is in one generation, we could be done with religion. Once all the stupid Christians die, once all the stupid religious folks die off, then if we teach our kids atheism, then when they grow up, all we'll have is a bunch of atheists. That's his contention. And he's saying that he knows that 13-year-olds have no problem with this. He's making broad statements and generalizations. So when a person would say something like this to you, you would simply have to ask, how do you know that? How can you know that? Where are your sources? Where are you getting your information from? In order for you to make that kind of a statement, I need for you to give me proof that that's exactly what you're saying. This is a talking point. This is what I talk about in talking points. He is giving you a talking point that is full of presuppositions. And if you do not peel back the onion to get to the center, or peel back the layers to get to the ooey gooey center of that Tootsie Roll pop, you are not going to ever get to a place where you can have common ground on this and you can actually understand each other and have an intellectually honest dialogue. He's not being honest here. He is throwing his weight around. He's comfortable in a room. He's comfortable with his audience, and he knows they will take him. They see him as an authority in these things, and when he says something, it's not going to be questioned. When you meet somebody, you need to question it. Remember what he said. Remember what Dr. Krauss said back in a few clips ago, that we should be we should be asking questions. We shouldn't be afraid to find out that we have misconceptions and then confront those misconceptions. He's bringing up misconceptions that are merely talking points. Next clip.
So I can tell you that, a generation ago, people had said there's no way that people would allow gay marriage, okay? And slavery, essentially a generation got rid of it.
I'm sorry, did he just say that we got rid of slavery in a generation? There are, right now in the world, over 30 million slaves. I got that from a few news stories, the New York Times, and a few of the other ones that said there were between 21 and 30 million slaves in the world. There are slaves in the United States at this moment. I don't know what statistics he's pulling from. I don't know what raw data he's interpreting to say that we got rid of slavery as a concept, as a form of trade, of human trafficking, how we got rid of that as seeing humans as property in a single generation. It has been around since goodness, thousands years. It was back. It was at least in biblical times I know of. So I'm just going by biblical times. There has been a form of slavery, indentured servitude, some sort of slavery type trade for about 6,000 years. So, now I could be incorrect on that. Let's say 4,000 years. Let's be a lot more conservative. Say 4,000 years that there has been slavery. It still exists today. All right? I don't know. You cannot let people say things like this. You cannot let people be loose and fast with the facts, as they say in all the political shows. He's being loose and fast with the facts. Well, you can't allow them, because if you allow them to be this loose with the facts, then you're going to lose the argument, because there's no way for you to make a valid argument if you've accepted an invalid premise. You can't argue against something that's false if you're accepting that falseness is true. So, we have not eradicated slavery. Now, we did abolish slavery among the African Americans or the black community. Okay? So in that regard, as far as slavery in the United States for the African Americans or the blacks, yes, that slavery was eradicated. There are still racial tensions. There are still remnants of those things hanging around. But to say that we got rid of slavery as an institution is absolutely, unequivocally false. Human trafficking is one of the biggest industries in the entire world. It's completely false. He needs to be challenged on this. If someone throws a fact at you that you have no right to, you know is completely false, you need to challenge them on it, call them to the carpet at that moment in front of everybody, not to be arrogant, not to be braggadocious or brazen, but because they cannot sow seeds of this in people's minds and say, "Oh yeah, well look, we got rid of slavery." No, we didn't. We got rid of one aspect, one form of slavery, but it permeates, and it's just as successful in the other forms of it. So we did not get rid of slavery. It still exists. So his premise, his statement is false. And where he's taking this is false. To say that homosexuality will be gone in a generation because, look, we got rid of slavery. Slavery was evil and horrible and bad, and we got rid of it in one generation because we made it, we brought the knowledge that it was wrong. And so therefore it was wiped away. No, I'm sorry, it's not you. I'm so thankful that the slavery in America for the African Americans and for the blacks has been eradicated and made illegal. We've always known it was immoral, always known it was immoral. And in fact, Christians were at the forefront of that in England and in America. So set that record straight as well. It's not eradicated. It's not done away with. Call them on the carpet on the facts. Make them produce it. Make them work for it. They don't get to say things like that with definitive and authoritative mannerisms in something that's unequivocally false. Call them out.
And so all you have to do, change is always one generation away. And we have the children, and exactly. So if we can plant the seeds of doubt in our children, religion will go away in a generation, or at least largely go away. And that's what I think we have an obligation to do.
I think my brain may explode just listening to those words that he said, that we need to sow seeds of doubt in our children, and in one generation this can be done away with. I think it's our obligation. And I hear that, and the dad in me gets pretty upset. I get pretty upset because you, in another clip that I haven't gone over, we may share it sometime in the future, but he actually equates teaching children about creationism and teaching children about religion is the same as child abuse. So you're going to take our children and you're going to sow seeds of doubt where I have so laboriously tried to plant seeds of hope and salvation and regeneration and change. And you're going to sow seeds of skepticism, sow seeds of doubt to try to eradicate something you disagree with and that you think is silly and you think it's your ought. And what I mean by that is you think we are obliged to do this. We ought to do this. We have a moral obligation to sow seeds of doubt into the minds of children regarding religion. I'm sorry, my friend, you do not have a moral ought. One, you're a naturalist. Naturalists do not have oughts. In naturalism, you simply have an is. There is no way in science and in empirical data to get from an is to an ought. You cannot go from water is, therefore I must do this. Science doesn't deal in true and falseness. Science doesn't deal in oughts. Science simply deals in is. And if you think that all that exists is the empirical existence in the empirical world and the physical world, you cannot get to an ought. You have no moral obligation to teach my child anything about sowing seeds of doubt. I can tell you, Dr. Krauss, one thing. You are absolutely right. It is our job to show this next generation